I'm a girl, and by me that's only great.
We can learn a lot about the history of women in our country, their role in society, the home, and the workplace by looking at the top 40 songs of women.
What was playing on the radio back then?
Songs that said, "Please love me."
I'll do anything for you.
Just be my baby.
Even if you're no good and treat me bad.
I'll even do the cooking and pay the rent.
Just love me, and I'll stand by my man.
But if you leave me, well,
it'll be the end of the world.
Life is over.
I'm nobody without a man.
Role models back then were women without power. Women went from doormat and victim to angry rebel to Wonder Woman.
How women grew up from childish dependency to teenage rebellion to responsible adult.
From the time in 1900s when the women were property of their husbands until the end of the century when they became presidents of corporations.
We can use popular music as a mirror to hold up to ourselves, to see who we are and who we have been.
And songs were important to us, weren't they? Didn't they impact how we felt? Or maybe they helped us understand what we were feeling.
Let's go back to the 1900s. Imagine the perfect woman of that time. What does she wear?
The corset! A true symbol of the restrictions women had back then.
After the stories of women swooning, no wonder.
They couldn't breathe.
And women were more or less invisible to public life around 1900. In 1848, long before women could even vote, Elizabeth Cady Stanton had written that
married women were dead in the eyes of the law and were completely under the domination of their husbands, who owned all the property and could beat and imprison their wives without any legal consequences.
Face it, women were in a one-down position. In fact, she was way down.
Songs about women in power continued with the theme of dependency.
Barbra Streisand sang a song about needy and dependent women in the 1922 number, My Man. But she left out a line that did not fit with the 60s consciousness of women. See if you can figure it out which line it is. He's not much for looks, he's no hero out of books, he's my man. 2 or 3 girls as he that he likes as well as me, but I love him. I don't know why I should. He isn't good. He isn't true. He beats me to what can I do? Oh my man, I love him so. Will not know all my life is just despair. But I don't care when he takes me in his arms. The world is bright, oh bright. What's the difference if I say I'll go away when I know I'll come back on my knees someday? Oh, whatever my man is, I am his forever. Finally, in 1920, women got the right to vote. But in practice, many women of color were excluded.
This victory, however, was immediately considered a threat. There was fear that these man-hating feminists would take over.
in the 1920s, good women were dependent, bad women were outspoken, Women who refused to be pushed around were considered mean. But maybe they were just
Strong.
They call her hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, the meanest gal in town. Leather is tough, but Hannah's heart is tougher. She's a gal who loves to see men suffer, to tease 'em and thrill 'em, to torture and kill 'em. It's her delight, they say. I saw her at the seashore with a great big pan. There was Hannah pouring water on a drowning man. She's hard-hearted Hannah, the vamp of Savannah, GA.
In October of 1929, the stock market crashed and brought 10 years of worldwide depression and a lot of escapist entertainment.
One of the popular singers of the day was a cartoon character named Betty Boop. Betty Boop sure wasn't touted for her intellect. One of her favorite lines was, "I try to think, but nothing happens."
Dun 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 dun. Ow! I wanna be loved, boy, you, just you, and nobody else but you. I wanna be loved by you alone. Boop boopy doo. I wanna be kissed by you, just you, and nobody else but you. I wanna be kissed by you alone. But I couldn't aspire to anything higher than feel a desire to make you my own. Ba-dum, ba-dum, ba-dee, ba-da-dum, ba-dum.
The 40s came. World War II was waged, and women entered the workforce in large numbers as men left for war.
Women started to feel some power. They had to keep the country going. In 1942, a #2 song by Dinosaur told us what men were really like. My mama done told me when I was in pigtails. My mama done told me a man's gonna sweet talk and give you the big eye, but when the sweet talking's done, a man is a two-face, a worrisome thing who'll leave you to sing the blues in the night.
African American women have been singing the blues for decades.
By the 1950s, the war had long ended, and the ideal women were portrayed as dependent and compliant in the most popular TV shows such as Ozzie and Harriet, Leave It to Beaver, and Father Knows Best.
So the culture of the 50s didn't allow women's aspirations to reach very high. In the 50s, the top 10 songs were about dependent girls and strong boys.
And of course, the smart things for a truly dependent person would have been make sure whoever she leaned on would be economically comfortable. Thus came the gold diggers such as Marilyn Monroe. A kiss on the hand may be quite continental, but diamonds are a girl's best friend. A kiss may be grand, but it won't pay the rental on your humble flat, or help you at the automat. Men grow cold as girls grow old, and we all lose our charms in the end. A spare
for love were seen as weak and abused. Then came the 60s, and the teenagers took over. They wanted cool and hip singers, even if they were all saying the same things as their mother's songs.
You know how wonderful he is, and you do anything for him. Follow him anywhere. Wait for him forever. Because if he's tough and strong, then I could be weak and helpless.
Can one person ignite social reform? The time had come, finally, for women and minorities to question their inferior place. An event in 1955 became a catalyst. Alabama seamstress Rosa Parks took the bus home one day, being too tired for her normal walk home.
She was refused and was arrested, tried and found guilty with a fine of $14. Those $14 launched a social upheaval. Dr. King, he led a bus boycott for over a year until our case went to the Supreme Court and the law was changed.
Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around, turn me around, turn me around. Ain't gonna let nobody turn me around. I'm gonna keep on walking, walking to the freedom land.
Around that same time, a young African-American poet, Maya Angelou, wrote the words that weren't sung into music, but which rang in the hearts of all African-American women, and indeed, the hearts of all women.
Out of the heights of history's shame, I rise. I'm a black ocean swelling, I bear in the tide, leaving behind nights of terror and fear. I rise. Bringing the gifts that my ancestors gave, I rise. I am the dream and the hope of the slave. I rise, I rise, I rise.
As time went on, women's and the civil rights movements advanced. The 1964 Civil Rights Act made it illegal to have workplace discrimination on the basis of race, national origin, religion, or gender. Leslie Gore captured this victory made by women and minorities in the 1964 number.
You don't know me. I'm not just one of your many toys. You don't own me. Don't say I can't go with other boys. And don't tell me what to say. I don't tell you what to do. So just let me be myself. That's all that I ask of you. You don't know.
Now it was time for women to go from childish dependency to teenage rebel. The floodgates were open. The anger that had built up over decades and even centuries came rushing forth. And what does it become?
Revenge!
Women were finally starting to have some strength, angry strength, but strength nonetheless. By the late 70s, women had enough power in their songs to change that. Many African American women came along to tell us how to stand tall, like when Aretha Franklin demanded. What you want, baby, I got it. What you need, you know I got it. And all I'm asking is for a little respect to get home, baby, when you get home.
Just a little bit,
Mister,
just a little bit.
I ain't gonna do you wrong while you're gone. I ain't gonna do you wrong, 'cause I don't wanna. And all I'm asking is for a little respect,
Just a little bit,
baby,
just a little bit, just a little bit,
Mister.
just a little bit.
R-E-S-P-E-C-T, find out what it means to me. R-E-S-P-E-C-T, take care of TCB. Oh,
Sock it to me, sock it to me,
a
sock
little
it to me,
respect.
sock it to me, sock it to me, sock it to me, sock it to me.
Oh,
Just a
a
little bit,
little respect.
just a little bit,
Respect.
just a little bit,
All right.
just a little bit.
Respect.
Just a little bit,
All right.
just a little bit.
Oof. The 60s and 70s were a tiring 2 decades, but the 80s rocked the boat with a different attitude. Cynicism was in the air. We realized love could not solve our problems, and we heard some songs that saw the uselessness of love, such as Madonna's Material Girl, that said, "Look, I don't want love, I want cold, hard cash."
Some boys kiss me, some boys hug me. I think they're okay. If they don't give me proper credit, I'll just walk away. They can beg and they can plead, but they can't see the light. 'Cause a boy with the cold hard cash is always Mr. Right. 'Cause we are living in a material world, and I am a material girl. You know that we are living in a material world, and I am a material girl.
During the span of the 20th century, women went from being property to owning property to managing property, like countries. We moved away from the time when the majority of songs were about needy women and where men were portrayed as abusive and selfish.
Now, we need new love songs about equality, interdependence, mutual respect, and justice in relationships.
This song is for all our mothers, grandmothers, sisters, and cousins. This one is for all the girls.
Sometimes I shave my legs, but sometimes I don't. Sometimes I comb my hair, and sometimes I won't. Depending on how the wind blows, I might even paint my toes.